Guðrúnarkviða I, the first lay of Guðrún. The first lay of Guðrún, entitled in the Codex Regius simply Guðrúnarkviða, immediately follows the remaining fragment of the long Sigurð lay in that manuscript. Unlike the poems dealing with the earlier part of the Sigurð cycle, the so-called Regnsmál, Fafnismál, and Sigurðarfumál, it is a clear and distinct unit, apparently complete and with few and minor interpolations. It is also one of the finest poems in the entire collection, with an extraordinary emotional intensity and dramatic focus. None of its stanzas are quoted elsewhere, and it is altogether probable that the compilers of the Volsunga saga were unfamiliar with it, for they do not mention the sister and daughter of Gjöki, who appear in this poem, or Herborg, the Queen of the Huns, stanza 6. The Lament of Guðrún, Brynhild, is almost certainly among the oldest parts of the story. The lament was one of the earliest forms of poetry to develop among the Germanic peoples, and I suspect, though the matter is not susceptible to proof, that the lament of Sigurd's wife had assumed lyric form as early as the 7th century, and reached the north in that shape rather than in prose tradition. See Guðrúnarkviða II introductory note. We find traces of it in the 17th century Aventur of the Nibelungenlied and in the poems of the Edda. It dominates every appearance of Guðrún. The two first Guðrún lays, 1 and 2, are both laments, one for Sigurd's death, and the other including both that and the lament over the slaying of her brothers. The lament theme is apparent in the third Guðrún lay and in the Guðrúnarkviða. In their present forms, the second Guðrún lay is undoubtedly older than the first. In the prose following the Brot, the annotator refers to the old Guðrún lay in terms which can apply only to the second one in the collection. The shorter and first lay, therefore, can scarcely have been composed much before year 1000, and may be somewhat later. The poet appears to have known and made use of the older laments. Stanza 17, for example, is a close parallel to stanza 2 of the earlier poem. But whatever material he used, he fitted into a definite poetic scheme of his own. And while this particular poem is, as critics have generally agreed, one of the latest of the collection, it probably represents one of the earliest parts of the entire Sigurd cycle to take on verse form. Guðrúnarkviða I, so far as the narrative underlying it is concerned, shows very little northern addition to the basic German tradition. Brynhild appears only as Guðrún's enemy and the cause of Sigurd's death. The three women who attempt to confront Guðrún, though unknown to the southern stories, seem to have been rather distinct creations of the poets than traditional additions to the legend. Regarding the relations of the various elements in the Sigurd cycle, see introductory note to Grupispa. Guðrúnarkviða I. Guðrún sat by the dead Sigurd. She did not weep as other women, but her heart was near to bursting with grief. The men and women to her to counsel, but that was not easy to do. It is told of men that Guðrún had eaten of Fafnir's heart, and that she understood the speech of birds. This is a poem about Guðrún. Then did Guðrún think to die, when she by Sigurd's sorrowing sat. Tears she had not, nor wrung her hands, nor ever wailed as other women. To her the warriors wise there came, longing her heavy woe to lighten. Grieving could not Guðrún weep, so sad her heart it seemed would break. Then the wives of warriors came, gold adorned, and Guðrún sought. Each one then of her own grief spoke, the bitterest pain she had ever borne. Then spake Gjafla, Gjöki's sister, Most joyless of all on earth am I. Husbands 5 were from me taken, 2 daughters then, and sisters 3, brothers 8, yet I have lived. Grieving could not Guðrún weep, such grief she had for her husband dead, and so grim her heart by the hero's body. Then Herberg spake, the queen of the Huns, I have a greater grief to tell. My 7 sons in the southern land, and my husband fell in the fight all 8, father and mother and brothers 4, amid the waves the wind once smote, and the seas crashed through the sides of the ship. The bodies all with my own hands then I decked for the grave, and the bodies I buried. Then Herborg spake, the queen of the Huns, I have a greater grief to tell. My 7 sons in the southern land, and my husband fell in the fight all 8, father and mother and brothers 4, amid the waves the wind once smote, and the seas crashed through the sides of the ship. The bodies all with my own hands then I decked for the grave, and the dead I buried. A half year brought me this to bear, and no one came to comfort me. Then bound I was and taken in war, a sorrow yet in the same half year. They bade me deck and bind the shoes of the wife of the monarch every morn. In jealous rage her wrath she spake, and beat me oft with heavy blows. Never a better lord I knew, and never a woman worse I found. Grieving could not Guðrún weep, such grief she had for her husband dead, and so grim her heart by the hero's body. Then spake Guðrún, Giuki's daughter, Thy wisdom finds not, my foster mother, the way to comfort the wife so young. She bade them uncover the warrior's corpse. The shroud she lifted from Sigurd laying his well-loved head on the knees of his wife. Look on thy loved one, and lay thy lips to his as if yet the hero lived. Once alone did Guðrún look, her hair all clotted with blood beheld, the blinded eyes that once shone bright, the hero's breast that the blade had pierced. Then Guðrún bent on her pillow bowed, her hair was loosened, her cheek was hot, and the tears like raindrops downward ran. Then Guðrún, daughter of Giuki, wept, and through her tresses flowed the tears, and from the court came the cry of geese, the birds so fair of the hero's bride. Then Guðrún spake, the daughter of Giuki, Never a greater love I knew than yours among all men on earth. Nowhere wast happy, at home or abroad, sister mine with Sigurð away. Guðrún spake, So was my Sigurð o'er Giuki's sons, as the spear-leek grown above the grass, or the jewel bright borne on the band, the precious stone that princes wear. To the leader of men I loftier seemed, and higher than all of Herion's maids. As little now as the leaf I am, on the willow hanging my hero is dead. In his seat, in this bed, I see no more my heart's true friend. The fault is theirs, the sons of Giuki, for all my grief that so their sister sorely weeps. So shall your land its people lose, and ye have kept your oaths of yore. Gunnar no joy the gold shall give thee, the rings shall soon thy slayers be, who swears oaths with Sigurd once. In the court was greater gladness then, the day my Sigurd Grani settled, and went forth Brynhild's hand to win, that woman ill in an evil hour. Then Brynhild spake, the daughter of Búthli. May the witch now husband and children want, who Guðrún loosed thy tears at last, and with magic today hath made thee speak. Then Guðrún, daughter of Guðki, spake. Speak not such words, thou hated woman. Bane of the noble thou e'er hast been. Born thou art on an evil wave. Sorrow hast brought to 7 kings, and many a woman hast loveless made. Then Brynhild, daughter of Búthli, spake. Atli is guilty of all the sorrow, son of Búthli and brother of mine. The flame of the snake's bed flashed round the hero. For the journey since full sore have I paid, and ever I seek the sight to forget. By the pillars she stood and gathered her strength from the eyes of Brynhild, Búthli's daughter. Fire there burned, and venom she breathed, when the wound she saw on Sigurð then. Guðrún went thence away to a forest in the waste, and journeyed all the way to Denmark, and was there 7.5 years with Dora, daughter of Håkon. Brynhild would not live after Sigurð. She had 8 of her thralls slain and 5 serving women. Then she killed herself with a sword, as is told in the short lay of Sigurd.